Haley, 30-something millennial, had or has 100,000 in credit card bills. She also had some debt from Afterpay and Pay Later programs. She was working at Starbucks and Target, trying to make ends meet. She has a college degree, but in communications. This is already an oversaturated field. As she told me, she is ticked. She went to school for years to not even get a job. Sometimes she would ask me for financial advice, and I would tell her to try to at least pay the minimum. She felt like with barely being able to afford food and utilities, she lives in an apartment with her roommate, she would never be able to pay the debt off. She felt things were pretty bleak. So she just stopped paying. She opened up a few different checking accounts and directed her auto debits there. Or turn off all the auto debit payments. Credit card delinquency gets progressively worse the longer it goes on. The stage there, 1 day late. A late fee can be applied. 30 days late, a late fee and a ding on your credit report. 60 days late, default interest rate can be applied, and late fee can increase from $30 to $41. 90, 120, and 150 days late. Late fees continue to be added to your balance and higher interest compounds, increasing the amount you owe. Your credit score continues to go down as late payments take their toll. 180 days late, the credit card company can hand your debt off to a debt collection agency. Then she blocked her credit cards on her email and didn't even read or get the bills anymore. The credit card company started excessively calling her cell phone, and she blocked them there too. She knew they were going to send the debts to collections, but she didn't care. She also didn't care about her credit score. As she said to me, "Do I look like I'm buying a house? Do I look like I'm buying a car? My credit score means nothing to me." Her debts went to collections. And some of them are super aggressive. She knew enough to not miss her car payments because the repo man would just show up and get her vehicle. Anything that was not secured, she was just not going to pay. She seemed to be getting away with it until one day a certified letter showed up in her mailbox. She could tell it was legal and it was important. She opened it up and it was a letter from Capital One Bank. She had the most debt with them, topping out at $5,700. They were taking her to court. She never knew they were going to sue her. The thought never crossed her mind. According to Debt.org, being sued by a credit card is fairly common. If you ignore a collection agency, they can file a lawsuit seeking payment. Every state has a statute of limitations on filing a suit, which ranges from 210 years. The statute is for the state you live in, where the lender is headquartered. The clock starts when you miss your first payment. It can be reset by contact with the debt collection agency, with rules varying by state. A lawsuit can result in a lien against your property, wage garnishment, and more. However, you can't be sentenced to jail for not paying a debt. The collector can't file suit after the statute expires, but can still attempt to collect the debt. She did not get a lawyer, and she just let Capital One win by default. She knew she owed the money and was never going to win. They won a judgment of $580 a month until her debt was paid off. She could no longer pay her car payment because Capital One was taking too much money every paycheck. She tried to call them and get it reduced, but it was out of luck. She struggled for a few months and tried selling some things on eBay to make up the money she needed. She even took on some side hustles, but then she came down with COVID and missed work. Haley was an hourly employee and lost a lot of income. She asked her parents what she should do. Her parents were also in debt and did not have the money to help her. They did some research for her and advised her to file for bankruptcy. That was the only way to stop a judgment. Haley is 35 years old and did not want that on her record. She was brought up that bankruptcy was the last resort. She stalled for a month and then found a bankruptcy lawyer. They explained the process and then she filed. But instead of Chapter 7, which gets rid of all debt, she filed for Chapter 13. With Chapter 13, she has to pay back the debt over 7 years. But the payments are much more manageable. And yes, it did ruin her credit score, but her score was already ruined by that point. She had dodged creditors for 2 years before she filed. It's 5 years later, and her debt is almost paid off. She knows her credit score will go back to normal once her debt is paid off. She feels relieved, but also angry that just basic expenses put her in this position. She'll still be able to possibly buy a house in the future if she can find one she can afford. Americans are in a lot of debt. Haley is not alone. With inflation and the pandemic, more and more Americans are in debt or getting into debt. And it's not that they are buying Coach bags and Prada. They are just trying to pay for car repairs and other necessities. Bankrate discovered that 49% of Americans carry a balance on their card from 1 month to the next as of November 2023. This is up 10% since 2021. But most people aren't carrying these balances due to overconsumption or a shopping addiction. Bankrate study says that 43% of cardholders' balances are due to an unexpected or emergency expense. Inflation has shot up 3.4% since last year, according to the most recent Bureau of Labor Statistics data. Shelter, electricity, and food have all seen price increases, making it harder for people to make ends meet. This is especially true if they're facing an unexpected expense. Only 63% of Americans have enough money saved to pay for a $400 emergency, according to the most recent Federal Reserve numbers. Americans are not getting into financial trouble because they are buying Starbucks daily. It is their income not keeping up with inflation and expenses. It is those random expenses that can kill your budget. Especially if you own a home, it only takes one flood or storm that damages your roof to blow your budget. So what's the solution? It's not adding on more side hustles, that's for sure. Haley was not able to work her way out of paying off her debts. She was not able to borrow money from her family to pay it off. In the end, she just gave up and stopped paying. For her, filing for bankruptcy was the answer. But it's not always the answer. According to Debt.org, here are some ways to pay off credit card debt. By now, it should be clear what happens if you stop paying your credit cards. It isn't good news. But you can take steps to catch up and manage your credit card debt, no matter how bad your financial situation is. Credit card debt help comes in many forms, and the one that's best for you depends on your financial situation, your spending habits, and even your ability to negotiate. Options include nonprofit credit counseling. Work with your credit card companies. Make a budget, debt consolidation, bankruptcy. Credit card companies may also offer hardship programs. Card companies may offer hardship programs. Late fee waivers, a limited time lower payment. Limited time lower interest. Reduce minimum payment amount,